Hi, gang. Bob Boving here. Welcome back to the Mystery Project. This week, an especially bizarre episode of our long-running Toronto series, Midnight Cab, written by James W. Nichol and starring David Ferry as your cabbie detective, Walker Devereux. And those of you who've been following the series will know that Walker is also an aspiring novelist, one with an abiding affection for the Beat generation. Midnight Cab, episode number 26. The Mystery of the Long-Lost Brother.
January 17. A January thaw. I finished my second novel. It's called Space. I've sent it out to publishers, places that showed some interest in my first novel, The Blue Planet, though it was never published, and contests in my mother. Everybody thinks it stinks.
Walker, where are you now?
Hello? I don't know. Toronto?
Could you be a little more specific?
Just passing Canadian Tire. I'm young above Davenport, heading south. Big deal.
Walker, I can give this call to Simon. Why don't you swing by the house and have a coffee or something?
Or something?
Yeah, like an egg sandwich. I'm working.
I don't know.
Walker, just because that woman sent your book back and said it was simple-minded, heavy-handed, and misogynist and be better off taking up another kind of hobby doesn't mean you should get so pushed out of shape, you know?
Yeah.
Like, who died and made her God, right?
Yeah.
So come over here and have a coffee, Walker. Right now.
Krista dispatches from home now. Our home, I guess, though it's actually her dad's house. He moved back to Greece, at least for a little while, so we're house-sitting or something. Her dad's kind of a generous guy, in a way. He sent Krista 1,000 Christmas. Just like that.
Thanks.
Okay.
You put sugar in mine again.
Yeah, I know. I forgot. I didn't stir it, though.
Oh, well, that's a break.
Yeah.
Walker, you know what would be nice? If you were in the real world at least half the time.
Hmm?
So how much longer do you think this big funk of yours is going to last? A week? A month?
It's not a...
Good morning, AP Cab.
It's a...
Yes, sir, 15 minutes.
A creative crisis.
That's 245 Ontario Street. Thank you. A what?
A creative crisis. What's the cat doing on the table? Buzz off.
He's not doing anything. Come on, Leo. Come here before he eats you.
Anyway, it doesn't matter. I can't write. I tried too hard. It was wooden. It stinks.
Simon, where are you now? Okay, you got to pick up 245 Ontario Street. Thanks. So, are you going to give up or what?
Not likely.
I didn't think so. Walker, I've been thinking. You have to work all night. You don't get the greatest sleeps during the day. When you do try to write, sometimes Martha's crying or some weird thing happens. What if you had a chance to go away for a few days? You said you had a new idea.
I can't go away.
Yes, you can. For as long as Daddy's money lasts.
What? Oh, no. I'm not going to take $1,000 and go...
Hey, who said anything about $1,000? $333.33, your share. At least you can get started on your new novel. And you know what? Maybe when you get back, you'll be in the same world I'm in.
And so, that's how I came to be staying in that crazy hotel in the first place. The Starlight on Queen Street, just on the edge of Parkdale.
Why don't you hit me again? Thank you. Why don't you hit me again? You lousy. Thank you. Die, bastard. Die.
The middle of the first night in the hallway sounded like a murder was taking place. Right on the other side of my door.
Are you okay? Oh, yeah. Sure. Love's a many splendid thing, right?
This blonde lady in her 50s, maybe, blood on her face, picked herself up off the floor. There was a big hulk of a guy standing at the end of the hall. He turned, disappeared down the stairs, and then the woman started rattling the door opposite mine.
Oh, isn't this just a trifle embarrassing? I seem to have locked myself out.
You're, bleeding quite a bit there.
Nothing. You darling.
Yeah, well, you'd better come in and I'll, get you a towel.
My God, it's Florence Nightingale. Wonderful news.
What?
I don't think I need a stitch after all.
That guy had no right.
I don't think he needed one, dear. It was a spur-of-the-moment thing, something I must have said.
Jeez.
I went 12 months one time without getting beaten up. It must have been my lucky year. Ah, there it is.
What?
The typewriter. I heard you this evening. Standard. Clackety-clack-clack. Love that sound. I thought I'd died and been transported to Paris in the 30s. Where's Hemingway? Down the hall?
I don't think so. I like it, and I can't really afford enough.
Don't give it another thought. It's perfect. You are a writer.
Well, yeah.
You roll your own cigarettes, and you sit all alone in this run-down dump, writing, and one day the whole world will know, in this place, at this very desk, you created a masterpiece.
I just want to get published.
I don't think so. No, you don't. You want to be a great writer. Why are you lying?
Geez, it's just that if you don't think like that, then it doesn't happen.
Then it doesn't hurt so much, What's your name?
Walker?
I'm Vivian. Hi. Hi.
Hi.
Maybe I'll just bum one cigarette, then I'll go down and get another key.
Okay. I'll roll a couple since I'm up anyway.
Little people try all their lives not to get hurt. You're not going to be a little person, are you, Walker?
Yeah, well, no. I hope not.
Here's what I think. You have a choice. You can either be hurt by other people for being what you are, or you can hurt yourself by not being what you are.
Here's a cig.
Thank you, Walker. Light?
She moved the towel away from her swollen and cut cheek, looked closely at me as if she wasn't sure about something, then leaned close as I struck a match. And that's when I noticed, under the mascara, the tiniest rose tattoo high up on her other cheek, and the faint blue line of a beard. She wasn't a she at all. She was a man.
Oh, don't burn yourself.
No.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Something the matter? You're not going to kick my ass out of here, are you?
No. I'll just, get it myself a cig.
So you see, I know a little about being yourself and the price you pay. But don't worry. I won't start doing the tarantella. I won't burn down the room. I won't touch anything.
Hey, jeez. Why are you talking like that?
Thanks for the towel, Walker.
So we finished smoking our cigs, and I stared at him, more than I should have probably, and he smiled at me. He said, just another night out in the town. Just another date that turned sad. And I believed him. I wish I hadn't believed him. Just a minute. Oh.
Good morning. Tea and crumpets. Look out of the way. Don't you recognize me? I have my civvies on.
Oh, yeah. I recognize that wallop on the side of your head anyway.
And the rose tattoo.
Well, yeah.
It isn't really tea and crumpets. It's brandy and croissant. But close and a lot more fun. Just a quick drink. I know you're busy. Just to say thanks for last night, and I promise never to get beaten up in front of your door again.
I felt kind of weird at first, being in the same room with Vincent, actually. Vincent Swan. When he came in that next day, he was dressed in a sweater and slacks, and his hair was short, and it was black, not blonde. But the more we talked and laughed, the more I liked him. Well, not liked him, but he'd lived all over the world. Paris, of course, and London, and Madrid, Rome, Hamburg, Copenhagen. He'd been living in Copenhagen for years, and he'd met all kinds of writers. Jean Genet, Sartre, Henry Miller. I couldn't believe it. A kind of network of Bohemia.
Beat. At least that's what Life magazine called it in the beginning. It didn't take most of us long to move out of beat, pass through debauch, and land in hell. Hell's fun, too, if you know the right people. Brandy's good, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I don't think I'll ever be getting as far as beat, let alone any of those other places.
Why?
I'm married.
Oh. Can you support your family with your writing, Walker?
Are you kidding? No. I drive a cab.
Well, that's romantic. And I imagine a good source for stories.
Yeah. So you, really met Jean Genet?
God, met him. I had to beat him off with a stick. The first thing anyone should know about Jean Genet...
He stayed all afternoon. Well, till the brandy was all done anyway. He started talking about himself. And he said he hadn't set foot on his native soil, Canada, for almost 40 years. But he just couldn't bear to be parted from his dear relatives any longer. And he felt doubly fortunate because he had no sooner settled into the Starlight Hotel to make a few calls when he read in the society pages that a niece of his was engaged to be married.
How serendipitous. Don't you think? I imagine my niece's delight as her long-lost Uncle Vi traipses in his high heels up the steps into Timothy Eaton Memorial Church. And I understand the reception is to be held at the Granite Club, where simply everyone who is anyone will attend. I can't think that I won't be the center of attention. I mean, second to the bride, of course.
And then he fell silent and looked sadder than anyone I'd ever seen.
I need money, you see. Desperate, terrible complications with a dear friend of mine back home. Otherwise, I would never have come back to this totally inadequate country. You should have seen my brother Murray's face when he first saw me. Oh, God, I'm sorry, Walker. You must write, and I'm boring you.
He got up a little unsteadily and walked out the door. And I guess I should have been glad he was gone. I mean, he wasn't just planning to go to that wedding. He was threatening to. And bribery, even using yourself like a can of mace, isn't the nicest thing to be doing. But then, it seemed to be causing him more distress than anyone else. And, well, let's face it, his story was a lot more interesting than the one I was working on. So I was sort of glad when 2 days later he knocked on my door again with croissants and a bottle of brandy.
Good morning, tea and crumpets.
One sunny afternoon, we walked along Queen Street together as far as the bus station at Roncesvalles. He wore a fedora and suit and a scarf wrapped around his neck that day. Said I might feel more comfortable walking along beside him in his civvies. And I said, he must feel right at home on Queen Street. And we laughed. We'd become kind of friends.
You have art. You have everything else. Light years away. Separate planets.
Yeah, well, I guess so.
You should travel, Walker. See things. Experience life.
I'm married, remember?
Oh, yes.
And broke. Well, my wife. Well, she's got CP, cerebral palsy, I mean. It's not bad or anything, but it kind of makes traveling difficult even if we could.
Well, I see.
And our baby. She's not even a year old yet, so... Sometimes I feel rotten, because there's a part of me feels like I would like to travel. You know, if I had it to do all over again, and then I feel really terrible because I love them, like, a lot, and I never want to lose them. So even thinking that makes me feel sick. I don't think I can write like this.
How much do you want to write?
A lot, but not that much.
Well, you know, you've changed the equation on me. I said you should travel, learn about life, so you'd have more to write about. But now you're talking about living a life, not looking at life. And that's very different. I know people who would kill for what you've got, Walker. And don't be stupid. You've got plenty to write about.
Yeah, well, I know that too. Well, my heart knows it. But my head doesn't. Or maybe it's my head that knows it and my heart doesn't. I don't know.
You're a very confused young man. How old are you, anyway?
21.
Oh, God. What are we talking about, then? Just go and shut up and write. You'll be fine.
Okay.
And love your family, Walker. Love them with all your might.
He looked away. Then he lifted up his coffee cup, and it was the first time I'd noticed. He had an old network of scars across his wrist. I only saw him briefly 2 times after that. Once, when he burst into my room, ecstatic, after walking through Mount Pleasant Cemetery in his blonde wig and his Marlene Dietrich outfit, as he called it. He said he had experienced a revelation amongst all the little cherubs and angels, and if he'd been lucky in arriving back in Canada at the time of the engagement, well, now he was twice blessed. And then, the final time, when I heard his door open in the middle of the night. I opened my door a crack to see what he was up to. He was staggering down the hall in his high heels, carrying 2 hat boxes and a massive suitcase, leaving, sneaking out without paying probably, and without saying anything to me. He went past the elevator and disappeared around the corner. I was about to close my door when his door closed instead. And the bulky man who beat him up that other night came out of his room. He was carrying 2 more bags. He hurried away after Vincent by, down the hall.
Hello?
Hey, you.
Hi. You're right on time. How's the writing going?
Mixed up.
Yeah?
Yeah. Everything's like confused here.
What, in your writing? In the hotel, what? In your head?
Both.
How much money have you got left?
If I don't eat, I can make it to the end of next week.
Doesn't sound like it's working out too well.
How's it working out for you?
Terrific. I've got someone else in my bed now.
Who?
Leo. He takes up a lot less room, and I get a lot more sleep, too. Hello?
Maybe it's just that I've, lost faith in myself that I'll ever be a writer. Maybe I should come home or something.
Well, you can come home whenever you want. Just one condition.
What's that?
Get over it.
What?
Whatever it is you're going through. Because, although it might come as a big surprise to you, I've got a life to live, too.
After receiving encouragement from my wife, I went back to my writing for most of that morning. Trying to write and not being able to is the second most frustrating thing that can happen to you. So I gave up, sat on a lumpy couch and watched my scratched-up TV. And I read the 6 pages I'd managed to salvage out of 8 days of writing over and over again. And the more I read them, the less sense they made. People fool themselves all the time. They cling to the craziest dreams because they can't stand who they really are. That's what I was thinking when...
Metro Toronto Police are still trying to identify the body of a man found at 5 this morning, lying beside the Gardner Expressway on the Humber River Bridge. Police said he appears to have been about 60 years old and was likely struck by a vehicle while attempting to cross the expressway or hitchhike. The only identifying marks were some old scar tissue across the underside of the man's wrist.
I sat bolt upright and stared at the screen.
Is that him, Walker?
Yeah.
Okay. When a head meets a vehicle, sometimes it's hard to tell.
Yeah. Inspector Kiss, there's something else.
What?
Well, that hole there, cut out of his cheek?
That's an impact wound. Car's grill, truck's bumper, I don't know, something.
Yeah, but there was this little rose tattoo right on that spot. Inspector Kiss turned and gave me one of his looks, like a cobra slowly waking up. Then I told him everything I knew, and then he stuck me in his car, and off we went.
Starlight Hotel. Nice place. We drag a body out of here about once a month. ODs mostly.
Vincent Swan. That's the name he signed in the hotel register, too, from Copenhagen. And from what I knew, there was no reason why he'd use a false name, even though he'd been written out of his family years before. Well, that's what he said anyway. Sometime shortly after he crashed the annual Christmas dance at Upper Canada College wearing a blue taffeta gown. His brother Murray was student president that year. Inspector Kiss took a look around his now empty hotel room. Then, just like the movies, he took me downtown.
Well, they got 8 weddings scheduled at the Timothy Eaton Memorial Church over the next 3 months, but no swans.
It could be a married daughter's daughter, so a different name.
Yeah, I realize that. I got someone checking back through the engagement announcements in the paper. It's got to be the Globe and Mail, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
Thank you. So, someone whacks our friend Vi on the head, strips him of his ID and his clothes, cuts out the one mark that anyone who had seen him could identify him by, the tattoo, puts some Goodwill clothes on him, dumps him in the middle of the night on the expressway, runs over him once to make it look convincing. No chance. The person who checked out at the Starlight Hotel and the dead body on the side of the road would ever be tied together. Except, of course, by the writer next door. You don't drink, do you?
Well, yeah.
Good. So, either the big lug whacked him for reasons unknown, here you go, or his family whacked him for wanting to be paid not to show up at the wedding. That's one thing bothers me about that.
Oh, jeez. What?
Well, why would anyone murder someone just because they're threatening to disrupt a wedding? So, it must be the big guy, right? Spurned lover, that's something.
I don't know. There was something else.
What's that?
Well, one day, Vincent went walking through Mount Pleasant Cemetery. When he got back, he was like ecstatic.
Okay, there's 5 Swan family plots according to these charts they gave me. 2 down that way, and 3 this way.
I'll go this way.
Yeah, okay. Take one of these. You realize I'm freezing to death.
Yeah.
Well, Walker, this better be good.
Mount Pleasant is this huge cemetery right in the middle of Toronto. It goes on for acres. Inspector Kiss! Inspector Kiss! Over here! Hey!
Yeah. What do you got?
Look.
What? Hey, you hit the jackpot. This must be the Swan family of all Swan families. Old stones, new stones. Look at that big thing there. That'd probably cost more than I make in a year.
Cherubs and angels.
Yeah, what is that? St. Michael blowing his horn? Gabriel, I can never remember.
Hey, Inspector Kiss. Look at this one over here.
Yeah, what's it say? Vincent Edward Swan, born February 10, 1936.
Died August 6, 1974.
Douglas Swan, is it?
That's right. Yes. What is it, gentlemen?
We got your name from off the Mount Pleasant Cemetery register. Buried your brother Vincent in 1974?
Yes.
Yeah, well, Murray, I'd like you to meet your brother Vincent's next-door neighbor.
2 things I noticed about Vincent's brother when he opened up the front door of his monster house in Forest Hill. 1, he kept glancing at me as if he vaguely recognized me. And 2, he was a very big man. The same man who was in the hotel hallway.
Do you want Leo off the bed?
I don't care.
Walker, what was Vincent like?
Different.
Well, I know he was different.
Sad. Funny. Vulnerable. All at the same time. You know what I think?
What?
That when he first came back here, he figured he'd been written out of the family fortune years before. But he hadn't. By 1974, he'd been out of sight for almost 20 years, and his brother wanted to avoid a lawyer's search for long-lost Vincent and the chance he might just pop up someplace to share their father's estate. So he arranged a phony death for Vincent instead. I guess when you're in the import-export business and know who to bribe, it's not too difficult to have the proper papers drawn up and a sealed casket arrive from Morocco. At least it wasn't in August 1974. When Vincent saw his own gravestone in the cemetery that day, he knew what his brother had done, and he knew Murray would pay any amount of money to avoid a scandal. That's why he was so ecstatic. But he was wrong.
But the first time his brother saw him, he beat him up. You'd think he'd have known his brother wouldn't pay him any money.
Yeah, but I think he really wanted to believe he couldn't be hated that much, at least not by his own family. That's why he trusted Murray enough that last night to move out to some hiding place, till Murray paid him and got him back out of the country. He was wrong.
What did you talk about, you two?
Everything.
About me? About Martha?
Especially about you and Martha.
I bet. Walker, if you keep writing, that's great. If you don't, well, that's not why I love you, you know?
I know. It's just that if I can't write, I don't know how great it will be for me, Krista. Krista?
What?
Do you think, we could move the cat now?
You've just heard The Mystery of the Long-Lost Brother, episode number 26 of Midnight Cab by James W. Nichol. Featured in the cast were David Ferry as Walker and Jacqueline Samuda as Krista, with Neil Monroe as Inspector Kiss. Guests this week were David Hughes as Murray Swan, yes, Donald Davis as Vi. Our music is composed by Milan Kimlicka. Casting is by Linda Grissom. The recording engineer is Joanne Anka, with sound effects by Matt Wilcott. Production assistant, Susan Taves. Midnight Cab is produced and directed in Toronto by our executive producer, Bill Howell. For the Mystery Project, I'm Bob Boving. Next week, we'll be back with the mystery of the backdoor key. And if you can't be with us Saturday evening, try us this Wednesday on Morningside, right here on CBC Radio.